He gave them his wealth to see what they valued and who would value him without the wealth, but it was what his maid spent it on that shattered his heart and changed his life forever. What would you do if someone handed you unlimited money for 3 days? Would you reveal your true character, or would you hide behind a mask of virtue? This is the story of Alexander Whitmore, a man who had everything money could buy, but nothing his heart truly needed. At 42 years old, Alexander stood at the pinnacle of success. His tech empire spanned 3 continents, his net worth exceeded $2 billion, and his penthouse overlooked the glittering Manhattan skyline. He had the cars, the properties, the influence that most people only dream about. But every night, when he returned to his pristine 15,000-square-foot home, he felt something that all his money couldn't fix, a crushing, unbearable loneliness. He'd been in relationships before. He'd dated models, entrepreneurs, socialites. But each relationship followed the same hollow pattern. They loved his lifestyle, his status, his black card. But did any of them actually love him? Alexander Whitmore, the man, not the billionaire? This question haunted him during sleepless nights, echoing through the empty corridors of his mansion. And then, one evening, as he watched his maid Maria quietly arranging flowers in the foyer, something clicked in his mind. An idea so simple, yet so revealing, that it would change everything. He would conduct a test. 3 women, 3 days, unlimited access to his wealth. He wouldn't tell them they were being watched. He would simply observe and let their choices reveal their true characters. His girlfriend Victoria, his ex-girlfriend Samantha, and his loyal maid Maria would each receive his platinum black card with no spending limit. What they chose to do with that power would tell him everything he needed to know. Before we dive into this incredible story, if you're already hooked, please hit that subscribe button. I spent over 20 hours researching, writing, and editing this video to bring you the most compelling stories on the internet. Your subscription means the world to me and helps me create more content like this. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's see how Alexander's test would unfold and whose true colors would shine through. Alexander Whitmore wasn't an impulsive man. Everything he did was calculated, measured, and strategic. That's how he'd built his empire. So when he decided to test the 3 most important women in his life, he planned it meticulously. On a crisp Monday morning, he called each woman separately. First was Victoria, his girlfriend of 18 months. She was breathtaking, a former beauty queen turned lifestyle influencer with over 2 million followers. Their relationship had always been public, glamorous, and exhausting. "Victoria, darling," he said over the phone, his voice smooth and measured. "I want to do something special for you. I'm giving you my black card for 3 days. No limits, no questions. Buy whatever makes you happy. Consider it my way of showing appreciation." Victoria's squeal of delight was so loud he had to pull the phone away from his ear. "Baby. Are you serious? Oh my God, I love you so much. This is incredible." Next was Samantha Chen, his ex-girlfriend and former business partner. They'd dated 3 years ago, and though the romance had fizzled, they'd maintained a respectful friendship. Samantha was brilliant, a venture capitalist with an MBA from Harvard and a razor-sharp mind for business. "Alexander, that's generous but unnecessary," Samantha responded when he made the same offer. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just accept it as a token of respect for everything we've built together, both personally and professionally." After a pause, she agreed. "All right. Thank you. I'll put it to good use." Finally, there was Maria Rodriguez. She'd been his housekeeper for 7 years, a quiet woman in her mid-30s who'd immigrated from Colombia and worked tirelessly to support her family back home. She'd seen him through his highest highs and lowest lows, always with a kind word and never asking for anything beyond her modest salary. When he approached Maria in the kitchen, her eyes widened in confusion as he handed her the card. "Senor Alexander, I don't understand. Why would you?" Maria, you've given me 7 years of loyal service. Take this card for 3 days. Buy whatever you want or need. You deserve it. Her hands trembled as she accepted the card, tears welling in her eyes. Thank you, Senor. Thank you so much. With all 3 cards distributed, Alexander activated the monitoring system linked to each account. Every transaction would be recorded, timestamped, and categorized. He settled into his office, opened his laptop, and waited to see what would happen. The test had begun. And what he would discover would shatter everything he thought he knew about love, loyalty, and human nature. What would you spend unlimited money on for 3 days? Be honest in the comments below. Would you splurge on yourself, invest it, or give it away? The notification started within 2 hours. Alexander sat in his office, his laptop screen illuminating his face in the dimming afternoon light. The first transaction popped up, Victoria. Bergdorf Goodman, $47,000. He clicked for details. 3 Hermes bags, a Chanel jacket, and a pair of limited edition Christian Louboutin heels. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, expression neutral. It was only the beginning. By the end of day 1, Victoria had spent $340,000. The list read like a materialist's fever dream: designer dresses from Valentino, a diamond tennis bracelet from Tiffany's, a spa day at the Mandarin Oriental that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and a private shopping session at Gucci that included leather goods, sunglasses, and a fur-trimmed coat she'd probably wear once. But it was day 2 that truly revealed who Victoria was. At 11 a.m., a transaction for $1.2 million appeared. Alexander's jaw tightened. He pulled up the details: a 48-hour yacht rental in the Hamptons, complete with crew, champagne service, and a private chef. She'd posted about it, of course. He pulled up her Instagram, and there it was, a carefully curated gallery of images. Victoria in a white bikini on the sun deck, champagne flute in hand, designer sunglasses reflecting the ocean. The caption read, "Living my best life thanks to my incredible boyfriend. Some people just know how to treat a woman right. Gemstone sailboat sparkles #blessed #luxury lifestyle #yacht life." The comments poured in, "OMG goals. You deserve it, Queen." Relationship goals. Alexander's expression remained impassive, but inside, something cold and hard settled in his chest. Day 3 brought more of the same. Another $200,000 on jewelry, a private helicopter tour of Manhattan, and a $15,000 dinner at Per Se where she'd invited 6 of her influencer friends, all documented, all posted, all broadcast to her millions of followers as evidence of how much her boyfriend adored her. Total spending, $1,847,000 in 72 hours. Not once did Victoria call him to say thank you. Not once did she ask if he'd like to join her on the yacht or at dinner. It was all about her, her image, her lifestyle. The card wasn't a gift, it was a prop in her never-ending performance of perfection. Alexander closed the laptop and stared out at the city skyline, his reflection ghostly in the window. 1 down, 2 to go. Do you think Victoria really loves Alexander, or does she love what he can give her? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The next was Samantha. If Victoria's spending was a fireworks show, Samantha's was a chess game. The first transaction came on day 1, 9:15 a.m., $85,000 to a commercial real estate developer. Alexander pulled up the details. She'd put a down payment on office space in Soho for her expanding venture capital firm. He nodded slowly, a small smile tugging at his lips. Typical Samantha. Always thinking 10 steps ahead. Throughout day 1, every purchase was calculated, strategic, purposeful. She bought a $25,000 ergonomic office furniture set from a Scandinavian designer, invested $50,000 in upgrading her company's IT infrastructure, and spent $12,000 on a professional branding consultant to redesign her firm's website. By the end of day 2, she'd spent $340,000, the exact same amount as Victoria, but the contrast couldn't have been starker. Samantha commissioned a $60,000 promotional video for her company, hired a business coach for $15,000, purchased $40,000 worth of stocks in emerging tech companies, and even spent $25,000 on a corporate retreat for her team at a leadership development center in upstate New York. There were personal purchases too, but they were modest and practical: a $3,000 laptop upgrade, a $1,200 professional wardrobe refresh from Theory and Vince, and a $800 gym membership at Equinox. Everything had a purpose. Everything was an investment, either in her business or in herself as a professional.
On day 3, Alexander received a text from her. "Alexander, I want you to know I appreciate this gesture more than I can express. I've used your generosity to make some strategic moves that will help my firm grow. If you'd like, I'd be happy to discuss investment opportunities that might interest you. Coffee next week?" Professional. Respectful. Transparent. Total spending, $487,000 in 3 days. Alexander leaned back in his chair, considering. Samantha had used his money wisely, purposefully. She'd elevated her career, invested in her future, and even invited him to potentially benefit from her strategic decisions. She hadn't wasted a dollar on frivolity. Everything was calculated for maximum return. It was impressive. Admirable, even. But as he stared at the transaction list, Alexander felt nothing. No warmth, no connection. Samantha had treated his gift like a business transaction, which was perhaps the most honest response he could have expected from her. She didn't love him. She respected him. And maybe, in her own way, that was enough for her. But it wasn't enough for him. For 2 days, Maria's card showed zero activity. Alexander checked the account repeatedly, wondering if there was a technical error. The card was active, the account was accessible, but Maria hadn't spent a single dollar. Not at a grocery store, not at a department store, nowhere. On the afternoon of day 2, he saw her in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared his dinner. The black card sat in her apron pocket. He almost asked her about it but stopped himself. The test required observation, not interference. It wasn't until day 3, 10 a.m., that the first transaction appeared. $5,000 to St. Mary's Community Church. Alexander blinked at the screen. He pulled up the details. It was a donation to the church's food bank program. He sat back, surprised, and continued watching. 11:30 a.m., $10,000 to the Coalition for the Homeless. 1:45 p.m., $7,500 to a children's hospital in the Bronx. 3:20 p.m., $8,000 to an organization that provided scholarships for underprivileged students. Throughout the afternoon, the transactions continued, each one a donation, a charitable contribution, a gift to someone in need. By 6 p.m., Maria had given away $50,000 to various charities, churches, and community organizations. But she'd bought nothing for herself. Not clothing, not food, not even a small personal luxury. Alexander's throat tightened. He'd expected many outcomes from this test, but this hadn't been one of them. Then, at 7:30 p.m. on the final evening, one last transaction appeared, $2,000 to a custom jewelry designer in Midtown. Finally, Alexander thought. She bought something for herself. He made a note to ask her about it when the 3 days concluded, though part of him already suspected what she might have purchased, perhaps a necklace for her daughter, or a bracelet she'd admired in a shop window. Day 3 ended at midnight. Maria's total spending, $52,000. The following morning, Alexander arranged a meeting with all 3 women. He'd rented a private dining room at one of his favorite restaurants, a neutral space where he could address them together and reveal what he'd learned. Victoria arrived first, dressed in one of the outfits she'd purchased, a stunning Alexander McQueen dress that probably cost more than Maria's entire year's salary. She kissed him on the cheek, her perfume expensive and overpowering. Samantha arrived next, punctual as always, dressed in a sharp pantsuit and carrying a leather portfolio. She shook his hand professionally and took a seat. Maria came last, hesitant and clearly uncomfortable. She wore her usual simple clothing and clutched a small wrapped box in her hands. Her eyes darted nervously between Victoria and Samantha, as if she couldn't understand why she'd been invited to a gathering with these two very different women. Alexander gestured for everyone to sit. The moment of truth had arrived. Would you have spent the money on yourself, invested it, or given it away like Maria? Comment below with your honest answer. Alexander stood at the head of the table, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable. The three women sat before him, each representing a different path, a different choice, a different truth. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice calm but weighted with significance. 3 days ago, I gave each of you unlimited access to my wealth. I told you to spend it however you wished, no questions asked. What I didn't tell you was that I would be watching every transaction. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand froze halfway to her champagne glass. Samantha's eyebrow raised slightly, but she remained composed. Maria's eyes widened in alarm. I want to be clear, Alexander continued. This wasn't about the money. I have more than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. This was about understanding who you are when given the power to reveal yourselves. And you did, each in your own way. He turned to Victoria first. Victoria, you spent nearly $2 million in 72 hours. Clothes, jewelry, yachts, helicopters. You documented every moment on social media, showing the world how well you're treated, how luxurious your life is. But not once did you call me. Not once did you invite me to join you. Not once did you say thank you. Victoria's face flushed red. Excuse me. You gave me that card. You said no questions, no limits. And now you're shaming me for actually using it? This is insane, Alexander. I'm not shaming you, he said quietly. I'm simply stating what your choices revealed. You didn't see the card as a gift, you saw it as content. As ammunition for your brand. As proof of your value. But what about my value? What about who I am beyond the money? Are you kidding me right now? Victoria shot to her feet, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You set me up. You played games with me like I'm some kind of experiment. I'm done. We're done. She grabbed her purse, a new Hermes, naturally, and stormed out, her heels clicking angrily against the marble floor. The door slammed behind her. Alexander didn't flinch. He turned to Samantha. Samantha, you spent nearly $500,000 on your business. Office space, equipment, team development, investments. Every dollar was strategic, calculated, purposeful. You even thanked me and offered me investment opportunities in return. Samantha's expression remained neutral, though her jaw tightened slightly. You treated my gift like a business transaction, Alexander continued. Which is honest, I suppose. You and I were always better as colleagues than as partners. You respected the money, but you never needed me. You needed what I could provide. Samantha stood slowly, her movements controlled and deliberate. You're right. I respect you, Alexander, but I don't need you. And honestly, this whole test was manipulative and beneath you. I thought you were better than this. She picked up her portfolio and walked out, her exit dignified and cold. Now it was just Alexander and Maria. The older woman sat trembling, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. Senor, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, I thought. Maria, Alexander interrupted gently, sitting down beside her. Tell me about the $2,000 purchase. The jewelry designer. Maria's hands shook as she picked up the small wrapped box from her lap. I wanted to give you something. After all you've done for me, for my family. I couldn't keep all that money. It didn't feel right. So I gave it to people who needed it more than me, the church, the homeless, the children. But I wanted you to have something to remember, to know that. She unwrapped the box with trembling fingers and opened it. Inside was a man's wristwatch, elegant and understated, with a black leather band and a silver face. But it was the engraving on the back that made Alexander's breath catch. Para Alexander, con gratitud eterna. Maria. For Alexander, with eternal gratitude. It's not expensive like what you're used to, Maria whispered. But I had them put your name on it. So you would remember that someone sees you. Not your money. You. Alexander picked up the watch, his vision blurring. His hands shook as he turned it over, reading the engraving again and again. In 72 hours with unlimited wealth, this woman had given away everything to those in need and used the last $2,000 to buy him a gift. Not for herself. For him. His chest heaved. A sound escaped his throat, something between a laugh and a sob. He pressed the watch to his chest and closed his eyes, feeling something crack open inside him. Something that had been locked away for so long he'd forgotten it existed. Maria, he whispered, his voice breaking. You gave it all away. Why? Why didn't you keep it for yourself? You work so hard, you send money home, you deserve. Because, Señor, Maria said softly, placing her weathered hand over his, you cannot buy what matters. Love, gratitude, kindness, these things have no price. You gave me a gift, so I tried to pass that gift to others. That is what we are supposed to do, no? To give. Alexander looked at this woman, this quiet, humble, invisible woman who cleaned his home, who asked for nothing, who saw him not as a billionaire but as a person worthy of gratitude and kindness, and he realized something profound. He'd been searching for love in all the wrong places. Who do you think deserves Alexander? Team Victoria. Team Samantha. Team Maria. Comment below. The restaurant felt impossibly quiet after Victoria and Samantha left. Alexander sat across from Maria, the watch still in his hands, the weight of her kindness pressing down on him like a physical thing. She looked terrified, as if she expected him to tell her she'd done something wrong, that her choices had disappointed him. Maria, he finally said, his voice hoarse, I need to explain something to you. And I need you to listen carefully. She nodded, her hands folded tightly in her lap. I've spent my entire adult life building an empire. I've accumulated wealth beyond imagination. I've been surrounded by people who want things from me, business deals, investments, access, status. For years, I convinced myself that this was normal, that everyone operates this way. Even in relationships, I accepted that people were drawn to what I represented, not who I was. He looked down at the watch, running his thumb over the engraving. But then you did something I didn't expect. You were given unlimited power, unlimited freedom, and you chose to give it away. You spent 3 days thinking about everyone except yourself. And the only thing you kept was a gift, for me. Tears spilled down Maria's cheeks. You have been good to me, Señor. Good to my family. When my daughter was sick, you paid her hospital bills without me asking. When my son needed help with immigration papers, you hired a lawyer. You never made me feel small. How could I be selfish with your kindness? Alexander's composure crumbled. He'd forgotten about those moments, they'd seemed so insignificant at the time. A hospital bill here, legal fees there. He'd written the checks without thinking twice. But Maria had remembered. She'd carried those kindnesses with her, and when given the chance to take everything, she'd chosen to give instead. I don't deserve you, he whispered. No, Señor, Maria said firmly, her voice stronger now. You deserve someone who sees you. Really sees you. Not the houses or the cars or the money. Just, you. In that moment, Alexander Whitmore, billionaire, CEO, master of the universe, realized he'd been blind his entire life. And Maria Rodriguez, a housekeeper from Colombia who'd never owned anything valuable in her life, had just given him the most precious gift he'd ever received. The gift of being seen. The days following the test felt like walking through a dream. Alexander couldn't stop thinking about Maria. Not in the way he'd thought about Victoria, that shallow, performative attraction based on beauty and status. And not in the way he'd thought about Samantha, that intellectual respect that never quite reached the heart. This was different. This was real. He found himself noticing things he'd overlooked for 7 years. The way Maria hummed while she worked, old Colombian folk songs that spoke of home and memory. The way she carefully arranged fresh flowers in every room, even though he'd never asked her to. The way she left his coffee exactly how he liked it on mornings when he was running late, with a small note that said, "Have a good day, Señor." She'd been there all along, quiet and steady, asking for nothing, giving everything. One evening, he found her in the kitchen, preparing dinner. He stood in the doorway, watching her move with practiced efficiency, her movements graceful despite the exhaustion he could see in the set of her shoulders. "Maria," he said softly. She turned, surprised. "Señor. Do you need something? I need to talk to you. Can you sit with me for a moment?" Confusion crossed her face, but she dried her hands on her apron and followed him to the living room. They sat on the sofa, an odd pairing, the billionaire in his tailored suit and the housekeeper in her simple work dress. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Alexander began. "About the test. About what it revealed. About what I've been searching for all these years." Maria's hands twisted nervously in her lap. "Señor, if I did something wrong." "You did everything right," he interrupted. "That's what I'm trying to tell you. Victoria showed me what I feared most, that I'm nothing without my money, just a prop in someone else's performance. Samantha showed me that respect isn't the same as love, that strategic partnership isn't the same as connection." He reached out and gently took Maria's work-worn hand in his. She gasped softly, her eyes wide. "But you," he continued, his voice thick with emotion, "you showed me what I've been missing my entire life. You showed me that real love isn't about taking, it's about giving. You showed me that kindness is the most valuable currency in the world. You showed me that someone can see past everything I own and value who I am. Señor, I don't understand what you're saying," Maria whispered, though her eyes suggested she understood perfectly. "I'm saying that I've been looking for love in all the wrong places. I've been dating women who wanted my lifestyle, my status, my wealth. But you never wanted any of that. You just wanted to take care of me, to show me gratitude, to be kind." He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I'm saying that somewhere along the way, without me realizing it, I fell in love with you, Maria Rodriguez. And I think I've been in love with you for a very long time." Maria's tears came freely now, streaming down her weathered cheeks. "But I am just a housekeeper. I am not educated like your other women. I am not young or beautiful. I have nothing to give you." "You have everything to give me," Alexander said fiercely. "You have a heart that knows how to love without conditions. You have integrity that money can't buy. You have kindness that flows from you like water. You see me, Maria. Not what I have, but who I am. And that is worth more than every dollar I've ever earned." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently wiping away her tears. "I know this is unexpected. I know there are complications, our different backgrounds, our positions, what people will say. But I'm asking you, Maria, if you could find it in your heart to give me a chance. Not as your employer, but as a man who wants to spend the rest of his life proving to you that you made the right choice." For a long moment, Maria simply stared at him, her expression a mixture of disbelief, joy, and fear. Then, finally, she spoke. "I have loved you for 5 years, Señor," she whispered. "From the day you paid for my daughter's surgery without asking for anything in return. But I never dreamed. I never thought someone like you could want someone like me. Someone like you, Alexander said, his voice breaking with emotion, is exactly what I need. Someone like you is what I've been searching for my entire life. He leaned forward, and she met him halfway, their foreheads touching, their breaths mingling, two people from completely different worlds finding in each other what they'd both been missing. In a penthouse overlooking Manhattan, in a moment that would change both their lives forever, a billionaire and a housekeeper discovered that the most valuable thing in the world can't be bought. It can only be given freely, from a humble heart that knows how to love without conditions. 6 months later, Alexander Whitmore stood in a small church in Maria's neighborhood, not the grand cathedral where socialites got married, but a humble community church where Maria had worshipped for years. He wore a simple suit. She wore a modest white dress she'd chosen herself, refusing his offers to buy her something more expensive. "I want to feel like me," she'd said, and he'd understood. The church was packed with people Maria had helped over the years, families from the food bank, children from the scholarship program, elderly parishioners she'd visited when they were sick. These were her people, her community, her world. And Alexander stood before them not as a billionaire, but as a man grateful to be welcomed into that world. When the priest asked if he took Maria to be his wife, Alexander thought about the journey that had brought him here. The emptiness he'd felt, the test he'd conducted, the revelation that had changed everything. "I do," he said, his voice strong and certain. Maria's vows were simple: "I promise to love you not for what you have, but for who you are. I promise to stand beside you in good times and bad. I promise to remind you, every day, that you are seen, you are valued, and you are loved." When they kissed, the church erupted in applause. Not the polite, restrained clapping of high society, but genuine, joyful celebration. The reception was held at a community center, with homemade food and a DJ who played salsa music. Alexander danced with his bride, laughing as she taught him steps he'd never learned in all his years of charity galas and formal dinners. "Are you happy?" Maria asked, her head resting against his chest. "I've never been happier in my entire life," he answered honestly. In the months and years that followed, Alexander's life changed in ways he'd never imagined. He started a foundation focused on immigrant families, personally overseen by Maria. He spent less time in boardrooms and more time in community centers. He learned Spanish so he could speak with Maria's family without a translator. He discovered that wealth meant nothing if it wasn't used to lift others up. And every night, when he returned home, Maria would greet him with a smile, a kiss, and a simple question: "How was your day?" Not, "What did you buy?" Not, "Where are we going?" Not, "What can you give me?" Just, "How was your day?" The question of someone who cared about him, not his bank account. Victoria had moved on to another wealthy boyfriend, her Instagram full of the same performative luxury. Samantha's firm had gone public, making her wealthy in her own right. Both women were successful by society's standards. But as Alexander looked at Maria, his wife, his partner, his heart, he knew that he had something neither of them would ever understand. He had love. Real, genuine, unconditional love. And it turned out that was the one thing his money could never buy. It could only be given, freely and without condition, by a humble woman who'd shown him that the greatest wealth in the world isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in moments. In kindness. In the choice to give when you could take, to love when you could use, to see someone not for what they have, but for who they are. Alexander Whitmore had given 3 women unlimited wealth to test them. And Maria Rodriguez had given him something far more valuable in return. She'd given him herself. The end. What did this story teach you about love, wealth, and character? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Remember, the most valuable things in life can never be bought, they can only be given freely, from a heart that knows how to love. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.